by the time we started Deep Blue Something, mentally I had kind of given up because Toby and I were the brothers in the band, grew up in the Houston area, and there's no real music scene in Houston. We had tried several different little projects, but the main thing was we just didn't know what to do, and we didn't want to be yet another person who moved out to Los Angeles and tried to make it. Like, I just didn't have any interest in that. And so there I was wrapping up my degree at university, and I was thinking about going to graduate school. And he had transferred up to the University of North Texas, which is here in the Dallas area. And he called me one day and said, look, I know that you're thinking about graduate school. You need to come up here. There's bands everywhere. There's venues everywhere. You can go to graduate school and we can start a new band. I said, cool. So I went up to visit him thinking that he was exaggerating, but he wasn't. I mean, in Denton, which is north of Dallas and Fort Worth, is the college town where the University of North Texas is. And in that small town, there were probably 10 or 15 live music venues. Every night of the week, 2 or 3 bands per venue. So you could play anywhere because it's a big school for music. And so there are tons and tons of bands. And so we very quickly put together a new band, which was unique for us because prior to what would become Deep Blue Something, Toby and I were very much electronic music. We sounded a lot more like Cabaret Voltaire. Even looking back now, I didn't realize how much we were kind of going for the Cabaret Voltaire, Nights Arab kind of thing. Okay. When we moved up to the Dallas area, it was very much, this band is finished. They pull their gear off the stage. You throw your amp down, you plug in your guitar and you start playing. Well, that doesn't work with synthesizers. So we said, okay, we got to ditch all of this and we're going to start a guitar band. Okay. And Toby, and I was really primarily a bass player. I always had been. So Toby was like, okay, that's a great plan, but I don't play guitar. So we just said, well, but musicians pick up instruments quickly. And I just said, well, first let's score ourselves a guitar, and then you'll pick it up quickly, and that'll be that. And that's exactly what happened. And he went from not playing guitar to lead guitar in the span of really a few months, and we were already playing gigs. And so at least we saw there being some sort of an outlet. We didn't have any career goals, but at least we knew, okay, well, we can do stuff. And then we saw lots of bands in the area. They had cassettes that they would sell at shows, which very quickly there was this transition between CDs became easier to manufacture. And so bands were selling CDs at shows, which to us was like, how do you get to do that? Because the idea of going to a recording studio was just, we had to buy one guitar string at a time. Okay. So the idea of our band going, and I'm not exaggerating. I am not, like, Toby would break a string and we would go to the music store and buy the one string. Okay. We didn't buy whole sets of strings. And he was playing borrowed equipment. We had one amp that would burn out halfway through the show. So we had to buy a second crappy amp so he could just switch, because they would both overheat. So us recording anything was just, it might as well have been $1 million. So we were selling out places before we had recorded a demo of any kind. Okay, we didn't have a promotional picture. We didn't have anything that all these other bands had, but we were really good live, and it just started kind of growing. And that's what happened. Eventually we did make, an indie record, and that's what the home record was. And it ended up taking us all around the world. A big label just came and bought it from us. So it was kind of the ultimate indie dream coming true, but yeah.
Did that happen though from word of mouth from these live performances and you guys honing in on your skills? Did that label come and find you, or did you go and find the label?
Okay, so the band grew to the point that we had a manager, and the manager went and shopped that record that had Breakfast at Tiffany's on it, by the way, okay, to all of the labels. He went to New York, he went to LA, all of them, no. Even some of them that said, yeah, I get the song, I guess, but it's not, this band doesn't sound like anybody else right now. It's just not going to happen. What happened for us, we were playing a big show in Dallas, and the venue that we were playing would occasionally, late at night, buy advertising time on the local alternative radio station. Okay. And so they did an advertisement for the coming weekend, and these are the bands that are playing, and we happened to be headlining on Saturday night. So they played this tiny snippet of Breakfast at Tiffany's in the ad for Trees was the music venue. So they played a tiny snippet, and people started calling the radio station asking, what is that song that's in that ad for that venue? And so eventually it was The Edge, 94.5, The Edge here in Dallas, and they started playing the song. And when we started playing the song, then we started selling tons of CDs, 5,000, 8,000, 10,000. And then all of those labels that had said no, now they wanted us. So it was only because we were selling that suddenly they heard this song that 6 months prior they didn't get. Okay. Which said a lot and really would be indicative of things to come as far as them they didn't really get us. They just saw dollar signs. But I tell you one thing, we were a lot more expensive at that time than we would have been 6 months before. I can promise you that. Yeah. So that worked out really well for us. But, you know, it was just one of those things. It was just all these tiny little miracles that just kept kind of lining up. But it was, I mean, we had every single door slammed in our face. It never stopped. You know, even when it was happening, it still stopped.